So I kept the stock wiring for startup just to simplify things. So now I am going to wire in a 30 amp relay for our fuel pump because it's bigger, and the stock fuel pump ECU, which I believe is right behind here, won't be able to last. It's unreliable. You flip this up, pop these 4 screws out. You got a bunch of these little clips. A very tiny flathead gets the job done there. We're gonna have 4 screws right here. 1, 2, 3, 4. That should pop this off, and that should give us access to our fuel pump ECU, which this wire comes from, and this wire goes to our actual fuel pump. Side panel got off, so not only was it these 4 screws, 1, 2, 3, 4, it was also I had to take off this one and this one right down here, which was a push in. You push the center in. Let me show you how it works. These things are pretty neat from Toyota and maybe some other car companies too, but this is how it's locked in, and you'll push in on it. So see how that's flared out in there? You'll push in on it and poof, it loosens up. Depress it, and then obviously when you're putting it back in, you put it in this position and you slide it in, and then you expand it. It's pretty neat. All right, so that's out. Wiggle this out, and then you have all the space. Looks like there's 2 bolts right here. 1, 2, and I believe that is our ECU. Fuel for the fuel pump. We took the fuel pump ECU out. It was held on by these 2 10mm bolts. This is what it looks like. Fuel pump control. And these are the wires. Looks like you've got a white with a black stripe, blue with a red stripe, blue with an orange stripe, a green, and a purple with a white stripe. That's just for this specific model. It's a 1993 Turbo Auto, which was 6-speed swapped. So Turbo Auto, this is the original colors for the fuel pump ECU plug. And just to make sure we got the right wire, I'm gonna put the key in the ignition, turn it to the on position. Obviously you're not even gonna hear the fuel pump prime because it's not hooked up. But I have my voltmeter here. All right, so right there, it's trying to provide 12 volts, it looks like. Okay, so that was the blue with orange wire. I'm gonna try the blue with red wire. All right, so now this is blue with red wire. Blue with red wire. Provides nothing. Man, that beeping drives me insane. Alright, so one more time, a little bit more clear here. We're getting, I mean, the battery's just low, but basically 12 volts, grounded. And I got this tapped into the blue. Blue with an orange stripe Florida Gator wire. Alright, not the blue with red, the blue with orange. And it makes sense because the blue with red wire looks like it comes down here to the actual fuel pump. So this comes from ECU, my guess, into the fuel pump. The fuel pump does its thing, or fuel pump ECU does its thing, and then it comes back out this blue and red wire to the ECU, to the fuel pump down in there. So I'm going to tap off of this, put it right directly onto my relay. I'll probably just splice it in just in case this ever needs to go back to stock. But yeah, I'll probably just pull this back, pop a wire off of there, and leave all these other wires the same. The worst part of this is absolutely running this wire all the way up front. I've got it down through the seats. I mean, right here is easy. and then going up through the dash. I hate wiring. I hate wiring. We got our fuel pump trigger on our Florida Gator line. Well, Florida University, right? Blue with an orange stripe. So that will be our fuel pump trigger. It's our switch 12 volts. We're gonna have our constant 12 volt coming from the battery. It's run all the way down through, under there, up under the dash. Comes in there to our fuse. We're gonna do a 20 amp fuse, which will then run to our battery. What's missing back here is I'm gonna ground it up to a shock tower, and I'm also gonna run my last wire off of our relay, right? 4 pins. So we got 1, 2, ground is 3, and our 4th is gonna be run to the fuel pump, which is under the tire. But I'm just showing you this before I close this up here, which I'm about to do right now. Almost closed up here. Everything's all back on except for this piece right here, right? Except for that piece goes right there where the light is. But just to reiterate, all right, we've got my relay in. I've got 12 volts from the battery. Goes to this back pin. Let's see if I can read it again. That's number 87. This trigger from the ECU, right, comes from over there. That's number 86. The one up top here that goes to the fuel pump, this one, is 30. And the ground, and the ground is 85. So you got 85 is the ground. You've got 30 here. 85 ground. 30. 12 volt from the battery. But that is how I have it mine wired up, my relay here. And again, so I'm holding the relay mount. This wire comes from my ECU trigger. This wire comes from 12 volts from the battery. This wire goes to the fuel pump, and this wire goes to chassis ground. You could ground it also over by the fuel pump, but I just grounded to chassis ground because I thought that is way easier. And I'm gonna let this float around here. And once it comes back from the tuner, I'll better home for it. But I'm happy.